This is the first of this academic year's series of Thinking Strategically. The purpose of the series is to make sure that people are aware of developments that are occurring in the humanities and more specifically in our subject community, and that they can feed that awareness into their daily professional practice. We will be talking about the implications of the curricular and assessment review due to report in mid-November, and the report compiled by Megan Bowler on the state of languages education in the country. But that's for our next meeting of Thinking Strategically, and the documents that we have prepared on that are available on our policy page on our website. Today's seminar is about training. One of the things that we're extremely proud of, both at the Institute and the School of Advanced Study, is our training provision. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce my friends and colleagues at the School of Advanced Study, Naomi Wells, Niilante, Ogunsola-Ribeiro, and Simon Parr, to talk about RESHAPED, the new training platform for the humanities. I had the pleasure of being present at Manchester at the Humanities Summit of the School of Advanced Study, where it was presented, I think, for the first or the second time, and it was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to hearing about it again, and I'll pass the floor to my colleagues.
Thanks very much, Charles, and I'll just sort out my sharing. Okay, hopefully that's all working for everyone. Great. So as Charles says, we'll be presenting today on RESHAPED. RESHAPED is a collaborative research training platform for the humanities. And the School of Advanced Study, we launched this in May last year, and it's really central to our work to support and advance the humanities across and also beyond the UK. So I'm Naomi Wells. I think some of you may know me because I'm a senior lecturer here at the Institute of Languages, Cultures and Societies. But on this initiative, I've been with the kind of core team, and I've been working closely with our two learning technologists, Niilante and Simon. I'll hand over to them shortly, later in the session. But I'm going to, just to kind of run through what we're going to be presenting today, I'll start off really by talking a bit about the thinking that went into the development of the platform. Then I'm going to hand over to Niilante and Simon, who will get to the more exciting bit of actually talking about what the platform is and giving you a bit of a demo of what's currently on the platform. And then we're hoping that will lead into a final kind of discussion about the future development of the platform. And as I say, this is really a collaborative effort. It's part of our work kind of external to the Institute, our national mission, also thinking internationally as well. So we're really interested in your perspectives on where this initiative goes in the future as well. But just to kind of get started, I think it's really important to say we didn't begin with a platform. We began with a series of questions about research training that the school offers more generally, and also thinking about the kind of needs in the wider humanities research landscape. I think some of these questions actually became more urgent as the platform has developed. And this is particularly true when we think about kind of declining resources, declining capacity for humanities research across the sector. And obviously, this is something that languages departments are really at the hard end of. And this obviously will also impact on the community's capacity to both develop and also participate in training. We see, increasingly restricted budgets, obviously very intense time demands that everyone has, and this is a very challenging context that everyone is working in. Alongside these shrinking resources, though, we're also under a lot of pressure to adapt both how and what we research, and that we need to do this in order to demonstrate the crucial contribution of humanities research and languages research within that. And we think training is really important here for helping researchers, and researchers at all levels here. We're not just talking about PhD, but even more senior researchers. They really need to be supported with training that helps them to adapt to the challenges we're facing. So with such pressures, we think it's never been more important that we really pool the resources and the collective knowledge we have more effectively. And we really need to do that so that we can sustain a very compelling inter- and cross-disciplinary humanities training provision. as we think about this pooling of our collective knowledge as well, I think it's really an opportunity for us to better articulate what we actually mean by humanities research training and also languages research training within that. I do want to acknowledge the really important training initiatives that have developed in recent years, particularly through the work of the AHRC's doctoral training partnerships across the UK. Recent reports have also kind of talked more about areas of training priority for the humanities and the skills that humanities researchers have and need. But I think there's still more work we could do as a community to really articulate what knowledge and skills humanities researchers should have and also might need to develop further. I do want to emphasise, though, that we have a strong emphasis on interdisciplinary training, but we don't see this as coming at the expense of disciplinary expertise or highly specialist humanities knowledge and skills, which we know are also under threat from shrinking provision. And this can include, language skills as well. And also, I think the kind of other thing we were thinking about is there've been some really important humanities, kind of very large research projects in recent years that have really been exploring in really exciting ways new methods and approaches for research. In the languages context, obviously, we might think about the Open World Research Initiative, for example. But there's a real issue that when project funding ends, researchers and their institutions often don't have the resource to ensure the continued dissemination of that knowledge, or even where longer term resources may have been developed, they can easily become quite fragmented or hidden across different institutions' websites. And this is why we think it's really important to be thinking here about collective humanities research infrastructure. Now, these are obviously all very serious challenges the sector is facing, and we certainly don't promise that Reshape is the solution for all of them. But I think we did think a contribution we can make in this challenging context is to really think about how do we strengthen the school's national research training provision through the development of a free and open and flexible training platform. Now, I do want to say, first of all, the platform is not intended to replace other forms of live, kind of online training or in-person training. I'm sure many of you have attended or are aware of the Institute's own training programme led by Sophie Stevens, which has got some really exciting sessions coming up over the next few weeks, which I really recommend you looking into. So I just want to emphasise this is not about replacing the other forms of training provision that we offer at the school. And we also recognise that, intensive in-person training can be really valuable, but there are often practical constraints, funding or time that prevent people from actually being able to participate in that kind of more intensive form of in-person training. And so we think that it is really important that we think about flexibility in training provision in order to make training more accessible to a wider range of researchers and a wider range of institutions. We also think online training, it can be a complement for kind of time-poor academic staff who are very active in supporting PhD students at their own institutions, but might not have the capacity, to really develop very kind of significant training resources. So what we think is the resources, you might also think about using them alongside maybe some more informal in-person discussions at your institution, because we know that local cohort development is really important, but we think these resources could really help academics who may be under a lot of pressure and may not be able to design training resources themselves. And lastly, I just want to kind of say we're really aware there are a lot of online learning platforms out there in the world. We did discuss, whether we might make use of some of those existing platforms that are available, particularly thinking of kind of MOOC platforms that I'm sure many of you are aware of. But we really felt that their quite generic nature would be less appealing to humanities researchers. And those platforms also have a very kind of resource-intensive model of online course development. And we really wanted to think about something that was much more targeted, but also much more responsive to the changing needs and priorities of the humanities research community. So that's really kind of the thinking behind the platform. And I'm going to hand over Niilante to talk a bit more about what we actually developed. So Niilante, you're on mute. Classic.
Sorry, indeed. Hi everyone. So yeah, the three things I want to emphasize first is that this is a free and open training infrastructure, and it's for humanities researchers across and beyond the UK. So in that, we wanted to emphasize the accessibility. So the first thing it being cost being a barrier that we're trying to break down, making sure that it's very clear that people can access different courses. They don't need to have any institutional memberships or anything. This is for researchers across and beyond the UK, and also that implies heavily that we are thinking about an international audience as well. So there are many that was part of the thinking in terms of how do we design a structure that is arranged in that way. And one of the things that was really crucial for us doing that is to make sure that you don't actually need to log in to be able to see what's inside of the courses. We wanted to make sure that people didn't feel restricted by things like logins if they just wanted to know what's in the course contents. And actually that's been we do encourage people to create an account and log in if they want to track their learning and make the most of the platform, but we didn't want that to be one of the impediments to the understanding of the platform. So one of the key things as well is that we are really aware that there are like communities of practice and pockets of really interesting research training going on. And actually we wanted to use the platform to amplify these. SAS is a bit of the School of Advanced Study is a bit of a microcosm of this, in that there are lots of interesting things going on in different places, but it's quite difficult to see them all in one place. And Reshaped is a place where we can really start to amplify that collective knowledge and expertise, not just within SAS, but also across the humanities as well. We'll illustrate how that works as we go through. And as Naomi mentioned, this is for humanities researchers at all career stages. So obviously everything from research students all the way to people doing their PhDs, early career researchers, but then also with one mind, one eye as well on the GLAM sector. So galleries, libraries, archives, museums, thinking about how professionals in those areas can engage with research and kind of forge collaborations and understanding. So next slide, please. You get to say next slide, please. So here we're going to talk about what Reshaped offers. And I think there's this first line, there's quite a lot in here, but I'll kind of summarize. So quality, curated, searchable, peer-reviewed content. Now, there's a lot there. So first of all, let's talk about quality. We wanted to make sure that the presentation of this wasn't something that felt restricted. We wanted to make sure that it felt modern, up to date. We wanted to put an emphasis on high quality video rather than things that look like leftovers from the kind of big shift to Zoom during the pandemic. We wanted to make sure things looked presentable and gave people confidence that they are looking at quality materials. The second one is in terms of curated. Again, there are a lot of platforms where content will go up there, it will be up there for a long period of time, and it will essentially begin to look like a place where learning content goes to die. We didn't want that. We wanted to make sure that we are have a clear perspective on when things need to be refreshed, when things need to be reviewed, what the expiration dates are for things, but also how things are arranged in a way that means that they're easily accessible, means that people can find things that they may not have, they can stumble across things, things that they may not have thought that they would be interested in, they can actually explore as well. And actually that's where we go to searchable. So we, by using keywords, by using tags, by even looking at competencies and the development pathways, we can actually start to kind of show people, hey, what about this information, or about these training resources, etc. So these are the kind of the thinking behind how we want people to find content on the platform. And the last one in that summary is peer reviewed, and that is actually going back to the fact that we had all of the content reviewed by representatives of that audience we just mentioned. And actually, we didn't just take their feedback on board, we actually spoke to them directly, and we ran focus groups so we can really get a good sense of how that content was landing. So the content that's gone up there isn't just we thought it was a good idea, it's actually been reviewed been peer reviewed. And now when you may be thinking, okay, well, what sort of content are we looking at? Well, we actually have three flavors of content, essentially, on Reshaped. The first is courses. And this is probably very, what most people will be familiar with, traditional e-learning approach to courses, you have you start at the beginning, you work your way through, you get a certificate at the end. It's not very much an A to Z learning journey, you know, the traditional approach. But we also felt that the need to incorporate some of the resources to signpost while avoiding that duplication, and that led us to to the creation of hubs. And actually, what hubs do is to incorporate things from various different places to signpost, to connect, and to amplify things in other places. So in hubs, you'll find that you are pointing to resources in other places, you're pointing to content within Reshaped, you're actually being able to bring things together in learning journeys. And we'll illustrate this a little bit later when we go through and do a tour. But it also, importantly, ties together asynchronous, like online learning approaches or even courses that people can do, as well as synchronous. So we can actually say, here's some asynchronous things, and here are some events. So you can actually see between those. Oh, okay, I wanted to take this course, but it's not, it's not available, or the time has passed. Is there an online course that will still serve my needs? And the last flavor is toolkits. And our toolkit is very much for targeted practical support, and they're usually to address a specific task, need, or activity that someone is doing. The idea is that people will be able to dip into toolkits, utilize them where necessary, and actually come back to them. So they are very much, they may look a little bit similar to courses in terms of presentation, but actually they're not designed in a way that you'd have to go through all of them. We expect people to be coming back to utilize them. But again, people are free to explore and go through all of them if they have the time and capacity. The current subject areas that we've got are here. So public engagement, interdisciplinary research methods, libraries and collections, digital humanities and publishing. I'm sure you'll all get a chance to explore and everything, at a later stage, but these are the subject areas we started off with. Important things that will be coming to Reshape soon is our collaborations. So actually working with other institutions, working with the GLAM sector, working with other partners. And these are, obviously external partnerships as well. So this is the idea that it isn't just the School of Advanced Study that will be creating the content. We do really want to create a space that we can work with others to add content to, not just to signpost to their other places, but also to create content that goes into this ecosystem. Because as we see, the more it grows, the better, the richer the learning journeys can become. Another thing, the expanded content and subject areas. So there will be more content coming. We have a kind of deliveries coming in November. We have more coming in January, and there will be a lot more in the new year as well. As the new year goes on, and there will also be more subject areas coming too, so it's very exciting. One crucial thing to mention as well, we did this very much with an understanding that the Vitae Research and Development Framework is a really good way to be able to give people an indication of what a course will be giving to them, where they will be able to, how they can evidence that they're progressing as a researcher. So we've kind of set the platform up with this in mind, and we'll be aiming to kind of actually build that framework directly into the platform in a way that people can utilize it. So it's very much a case that we do want people to not just come to the platform and do some learning. We actually want them to come away from the platform being able to evidence and describe what they have taken from it as well. So, and using that framework is a fantastic way of doing that. So without much further ado, I think it's probably time for a live demonstration. So I'll hand over to Simon, my fellow learning technologist. He'll share his screen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Niilante. Right, let's share the screen. Okay, hopefully everyone should be able to see the screen now. Okay, so what you can see is the homepage of Reshapes, which will be the first thing that you'll log on to, and you can see a selection of courses beneath. We're going to take a quick look at one course which is probably going to be quite relevant to people in this audience, and that is the Interviews Humanities Research Method course. So just click on Begin Course. And here we're into the course. Now, probably the first thing that you can see is this box here, which is course information. This has some kind of short, succinct information about the course to kind of help people, researchers, decide whether or not taking this course is going to be worth their while. I want to draw your attention to a couple of points. One of them is the estimated duration of the course. So obviously we can't be entirely precise because everyone's going to be completely different, but it will give you a sort of rough ballpark figure. And this is something which has come out as quite important in our feedback. And as Niilante has mentioned the Vitae research development framework already, we also mention how this aligns to that. Each course has a short introductory video where the course authors will actually introduce the course to you. And in line with good practice, we have learning outcomes for the course. I also want to highlight that each course is offered under a Creative Commons license. So you are free to reuse it. What we do ask is that you give us credit for doing that, and we've given you some guidance on how to cite that. Okay, so let's actually go into have a look at some of the learning content. For this, you need to select one of the tiles and go into course content itself. Okay, so we're going to look at a section 2. Sometimes you will be taken to the sort of an index of the course. We've made it a very important principle of the course that each of the courses is very easily navigable, and it follows a very kind of logical and coherent flow. This is something, especially in an online learning environment, which is particularly important. So let's have a look at the second strand of the course, which is preparing for interviews. You see you've got a sort of overall index on the side. This can be expanded or closed as to whenever it's convenient for you. We have the learning outcomes, and we've tried as far as possible to be kind of quite interactive, and we've placed a lot of emphasis on making it look, as Niilante mentioned earlier, kind of making it looking quite engaging. So I've got this section on certain practical considerations which should be taken into consideration. People can, for this section, can select particular points on the screen where particular points can be outlined for them. This is not going to be accessible for all learners, so what we have done is we've created an alternative version as well, an alternative downloadable version. We've put in a lot of effort into taking accessibility into consideration. We have another type of activity which is all about finding interviewees. We've kind of made this into an interactive scenario. So you'll have a question and you'll have like different responses given according to which option people have chosen. Again, we have this as an alternative format which can be sort of downloaded as well. So we have a little bit more content here. We have some scenario. We have some particular scenarios where we ask students to think about how they would respond to particular situations. We kind of think that practical applications of knowledge is something that we really want to encourage. And we have some possible solutions. We like having we've got several prompts as well, where we get students or researchers to kind of reflect a bit on what they have learned. And one thing which we have also had in a lot of our courses, we've included quite a few videos where experienced practitioners talk a little bit about their experiences, and they provide sort of tips and suggestions for how to study further. I'm not sure whether I can share the screen, but you can see here. You might recognise a couple of the speakers here. So we've got Joe Ford from SAS, and we have Naomi from SAS as well. Okay, at this point, I'm going to pass over to Niilante.
Right, so now we've seen what that kind of A to Z journey looks like, that learning, that course will look like, taking the same kind of visual principles and same look and feel and everything. I'm going to navigate through from the login page just so you can see, because you'll be doing this later, hopefully, and take you through a hub so we can actually see what something different looks like. So my screen should be coming through now. Is that coming through? Fantastic. I hope so. Okay, great. So you can access as a guest, which means that you don't actually need to, oh, sorry, maybe I need to delete all of this to do that. And then click access as guest. And like a charm, it has worked. So the hub that I'll be exploring to kind of give an illustration is the public engagement hub. And I think that what's really useful to know about this is that public engagement is well, the team who were working on this. It isn't the case that there was, you know, they spent huge amounts of time writing content. There was content that they had in one place that we needed to adapt and develop, and I worked quite closely with them for that. But the result is this hub. So I'm going to kind of close this to minimize noise for now. Again, this on the landing page, you have the hub information. Who is this for? What are the purposes? Who is curating it? And it's really important, this fact. There is the public engagement team curates this hub. So they look after the space. It's not a case that it's just put up there and left. They are actively, you know, monitoring it and keeping track of it. I haven't checked in that recently, so let's see just how up to date they're keeping it. I'm sure they are, though. But yeah, again, the ability to search by subject areas and themes, etc. So we want to make it really clear what these hubs are for from the outset. We have an introductory video, in this case from Sarah Treadwell, and it's to kind of give an overview of what the hub is about, what people can expect to find there. And as you can see here, straight away you have 5 different tiles, the 5 different areas of the hub. So the ability to say what the public engagement resources are on Reshaped. So we've got the links to the courses that are on Reshaped. We have events. So these are the events that will be running, some at SAS, some maybe not. We have suggested learning journeys. So we've talked about this briefly. We'll look into it in a minute. Further resources. So this is things that other things on Reshaped people might find interesting. Where else can they go once they've looked at public engagement, for instance? And then lastly is external resources. So how further afield even. So other things that you may find interesting. And what this does is it allows us to do that, that showcasing, but also curation of resources as well. There's all of these elements that go into it. First of all, we'll start with looking at the content on Reshaped. And as we mentioned, the hub is can point to other things that are on Reshaped. And in this case, we'll also get to see a toolkit as a result of this. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. This is what the landing page for a toolkit looks like. Again, same information at the start. We give people information about what they'll get from accessing the content. We think it's really important that people know whether it's something that they can, you know, want to spend their time investing in. Again, there's similar principles to what Simon described. And once we go into a toolkit, you'll see that it will load eventually, and you'll see it's a similar sort of display. It's the idea that it's the same sort of course structure as a course, but it doesn't necessarily work in the same way. In this particular toolkit, it's for people who are trying to find the right format for their public engagement event. We have an introductory video.
Finding the right format.
It's very loud on my side. We have lots of tips for successful formats. Again, interactive, balance of interactivity and content. I think it's really important to mention as well that we don't just want to have a case of course, it'll feel very interactive. There's the right time and place for that, and we think we've got the right balance. So some things lend themselves very much to interactivity. There's a lot of places where the content at this level is a lot more reflective. It's a lot more asking questions. It's a lot more about thinking about your own context. And we do that at places like with the checklist, for instance. This is the idea that once people have gone through all of the content, they can now sit and reflect and think about what is right for their format. Actually, just to flip back to some of these, I think that this is also quite a nice illustration of that. There are places where there's a lot of information, and actually you don't want to overwhelm the learners, so try to balance that as well to give people the right level of detail for what they need. There are reflective, formative sort of assessments just to help people understand if they've got the right idea and give them feedback if their kind of thinking needs some more support. The other things that we wanted to include as well, which I can't see. Oh, sorry, I should just look in the where's the best place to think? I think it was simple is often better. maybe it's this one, basically case studies. So yes, here we go. So we wanted to give actual case studies of real events as well. So where possible, we do want to give people the a tangible real world sort of example rather than just the hypothetical principles. And actually that's been really nice because obviously the Being Human Festival, which I should mention, the public engagement team works closely with, it's a bit complicated in some cases, but they manage essentially. They can give direct examples from that. So it's obviously they're reputable in terms of they've got that experience and they've kind of explained to people how other people have achieved success with that. So that's an example of a toolkit. And like we said, the idea is that you can dip in, go through, access the bits that you need, and then come back to them at any point. And as you can see, there are 3 toolkits on Reshaped at the moment, where I think we have a plan to develop more in the future. They also have a link to their downloadable toolkits, which are PDF versions of similar but different content as well. So that's what an example of the resources we have on Reshaped. So an example of a toolkit, an example of how things can be arranged there. We do also have links to events. So you can see here, there's event success. Okay, this one, maybe it's a little out there. But they also have moved the other ones to past events. And the idea is that this is actually bringing together this asynchronous offering alongside the synchronous offering. It is a case that there is some manual work that goes into it, but it's really important that when people are searching for an online event, or they also do know about the other things that are going on. If they are asynchronous courses, we want people to be able to discover those. So that's the purpose of doing this. But once you've put those 2 into the same place, you can now construct learning journeys. So in this particular case, I'm going to have to enroll. So we might have to log in. Let's see. Let's see how far I get. Yeah, here we go. It's not going to show exactly how it would normally, but the idea is that you can structure and say, if for this particular learning journey, getting started with public engagement, we suggest that, well, the checklist would be complete finding the right format, complete focusing on your audience, and complete working with a partner. That list could also include synchronous events. It could include courses from other places. So you can actually, once things are on the platform, start to create different learning journeys that take from lots of different places. And actually, that's a real way to start creating unique, specific, and responsive learning offerings that go beyond just a single course. How many times people will say, oh, we need a course for this set of people. If we have the constituent components, we can actually start to construct things that will be useful for people in different ways. So that's learning journeys. The last ones I'll show are further resources. So again, this is available elsewhere, but they wanted to point people to, again, more case studies so that people can look into those. Again, back to their toolkits on other places. And planning resources, so things that people might find useful. And the last one is external resources. So this is pointing out to other places, signposting and amplifying other things going on in other places without having to replicate them on the platform. And that's a summary of what hubs are and how they work, as well as what toolkits are and what they can do too. And so with that, I will stop sharing and hand back to Naomi, I think.
You now, Simon, I think. Yeah.
I think it's me, yeah. Okay, could you move in true Chris Whitty style? Could you move on to the next slide? Okay, so here's a little bit about the content development process. We like it very much to be a sort of collaborative and iterative process. So the process will usually start off with 1 or 2 course mapping meetings where the learning technologists, myself and Niilante, will meet with the course writers. This can be in person or it can be online. And this is where we'll sort of really tease out what exactly the essence of the course is. And then as a result of that, we will start developing a sort of map of the course. We will be developing a map of the course. We'll be talking about learning objectives and outcomes as well. And moving back from that, we will actually get the actual structure of the course. It's not something which will be set in stone, but on the other hand, it is always a very good idea to have an idea of where we are going to be going, what are the important outcomes which will need to be covered. And on the basis of that, we will go and kind of create course maps, and then then the content will actually be written. Now, what will not happen is that we will leave the course writers on their own to write lots of content. They give us the content, we just put it on Reshaped, and the content on Reshaped is something completely different to how the core content writers have envisaged. It will be very much, we will build some of the course writers will feed back, we will feed back on the content which has been produced. We use the platform that we use for creating the content has got a very nice sort of review feature where content writers can actually annotate the content which has been actually created. As we've talked about before, we're using a sort of variety of people to actually create the content. Some of it will be created from staff at SAS. Some of it will be created from freelancers. Some of it will be actually written by academics based in different institutions. I think the key to who we commission to write the course is that their expertise and their experience in their subjects. It is, it is the quality of what is being put there is something which is really important. We are going to be the decisions about which courses are going to be prioritized, which are going to be developed, and at what time. That's going to be taken by an editorial board, which we are in the process of finalizing the details for. But essentially, this is going to be made up of experts across the sector, not just in SAS, but from different institutions as well. Okay, I think that's it from me.
Great. I think, you seem to be, a slide seems to have gone missing with the list of.
Yeah, I mean, I can, even though we don't have the slide, I could talk briefly about the sort of content that we have already and the content that we are in the process of developing. Alternative, I could actually share, I think we could share my screen because I think I have that.
I think I might have fixed it.
Yes, okay, slide 8, that's the one. Fantastic, thank you, No. Okay, so as you can see, we have 7 different resources available on Reshaped. That is 2 hubs and 5 courses. So anything which doesn't have the word hub after it, which doesn't have hub after it, that is essentially a course. We have a slight little outlier, which is the public engagement, because that's the kind of combination of a public engagement hub and a toolkit, series of toolkits as well. So as you can see, we have courses on open access in the humanities, digital approaches to textual analysis, born digital research, etc., etc. So we've got quite a nice range, but by the beginning of next year, we will have expanded on that quite a lot. And all of these courses, as you can see on the right-hand side, they are all under sort of various stages of development. Again, it's a kind of quite a sort of variety of courses and toolkits. The earliest courses which are going to be coming online will be a toolkit, a sort of careers-related toolkit, which is on ongoing freelance for people with humanities PhDs, and an introduction, concepts of digital humanities course. So they will be going online next month in December. Not December, I'm sorry, in November. And by January, we will have expanded on this quite a lot. So we are going to be having courses related to collections. We're going to have digital humanities related courses such as computer vision, 3D and cultural heritage, which is quite an exciting one, and Yeah, lots of different courses all in the pipeline.
Great, thanks, Simon. I don't know what's going on with my PowerPoint right now, but anyway, slides are appearing and disappearing, but thanks very much. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up by, talking about, as I say, we've had this initial round of content and it's mainly been developed by SAS staff internally, just because we want to kind of be able to show people what the potential is and how it works. But we're really interested, it's really going to expand, as Niilante highlighted and Simon highlighted, to much more kind of external contributions. And just to kind of give an idea of what we're looking for, we have, as I say, got this strong emphasis on material that's relevant across humanities disciplines. And as I say, we don't mean generic training here, but really looking at resources that explore how a subject area or a method might have been approached from different disciplinary areas in and also potentially beyond the humanities. And just, Simon's demonstrated the interviews course that me and Joe developed. And what we tried to do there is we brought our backgrounds as languages researchers, how we've used interviews in our own languages, cultures and societies research. But we also talked about how interviews might be used in other disciplines and how, other disciplines might also want to be sensitive, particularly to some of the languages concerns that we might have in interviews, think a bit more about what interviews people conduct languages and all of those kind of questions that we maybe think about that other humanities disciplines could also benefit from. So as I say, we think this interdisciplinary approach is really important for expanding how humanities researchers kind of their understanding of different areas, the approaches they might use, encourage that kind of curiosity and creativity. And it also allows each disciplinary community, to really think about what knowledge and skills they have as a community that maybe other disciplines might benefit from learning from. So I think this is something we can think about maybe as languages, cultures and societies researchers. I also mentioned, the importance that, this is not very generic training. We also really want to think about how we disseminate and support the very specialist expertise that exists in the community. As Niilante highlighted, we're thinking, people in GLAM, people in galleries, libraries and archives, museums. This can be a place for them to also talk about the kind of very specialist kind of curator expertise that they have as well. So we really do want this to really, communicate the breadth of what the humanities has, and also really think about the humanities in a very inclusive way of the different types of humanities research and practice that exists. But as I say, this is really the start and not the end of the process. We wanted, to have a platform to show to people so they could understand what we're trying to achieve. But we're really interested in hearing people's ideas for the platform as well. I'm going to, in a minute, show a short video, which is just a bit of a flashy splash for the platform. But just before I do that, I thought obviously it will be great in the discussion soon to really hear your views and opinions. But just some questions I think that we'd really be interested in learning about are, thinking about who we're talking here today, what areas of training are actually most needed for languages, cultures and societies researchers? And also, what areas of training can languages, cultures and societies researchers actually make a really valuable contribution to the platform, thinking, as I say, about how we might share our own knowledge and skills with other communities. And then lastly, how would you envision using ReShaped in your own research and teaching context? So just some questions that maybe we can come back to in the discussion. But for now, hopefully, I have got the sound working. I'm just going to show this short video.
ReShaped is an exciting new space for humanities researchers across the UK and beyond.
You can find out from experts in a range of fields about the new and emerging research areas that are developing and learn at your own pace and in your own time.
What I'm really excited about with ReShaped is that it's going to give everybody the opportunity to figure out how to connect the dots.
Where does cognition start? Where does cognition end? And do they have even the ingredients for intelligence?
If you're writing something, the writing of it is only half the thing.
So it can feel daunting for authors to be thinking about which publisher to approach.
You need to be really transparent and open, cards on the table, about what you're dealing with.
It's never been more important for humanities researchers to engage in lifelong skills and knowledge development, particularly as new and emerging areas of research are constantly evolving. Things like digital humanities, impacting engagement, they all require us to learn about new things and new ways of doing and practicing research.
Our conception of ourselves as being rebuilt, restructured, by our dealings with artificial intelligence.
And we can see that this isn't just an abstract kind of philosophical worry, right? It's a problem with real world repercussions.
The important big questions about life, about suffering, about working with students.
Reshaped is much more than just a learning platform. Yes, you'll find courses, but you'll also find events, toolkits, and hubs.
It's all about matching ideas, research, audiences, places, and bringing people together.
The researchers can get together, communicate, share ideas, discover links to resources, further communities, and really grow their expertise.
If you have an array of resources that let you put together the pieces of the puzzle in the way that works best for you, then we can all be building something really creative, really innovative, and really special.
So take a look around our platform and find out about the different areas of research that are developing in the humanities and arts.
Reshaped.
All right, but yeah, I'm watching yourself on video, but yeah, we won't run it again. Thanks very much. I think that's everything on our side. We've got a QR code there and also the website, which will take you through to the landing page, which Niilante showed you as well. You will be taken through to a login screen, but you can, as we say, either create a free account or use guest access. So it's very open and flexible. But yeah, I think that's everything from us. And we're really interested in hearing your ideas.
Thank you, Niilante, Simon, and Naomi. That was terrific. I'm real fan, terrific fan of all that you've done and put together as an inclusive, forward-looking resource that is going to be developed collaboratively in the future. So we've got a good 15, 20 minutes for discussion, and very usefully, Naomi presented some of the issues that we'd like to hear about. So who'd like to begin the discussion? Just keeping an eye. Yeah, Juliana, please.
Hi, thank you so much. I mean, this is obviously super exciting, and I can see lots of different ways in which universities really integrate actually all of these activities into their own teaching. As you were saying, I think the pressure on time to create such high quality resources and actually, frankly, financially, that is very, very difficult particularly for small universities. But I can see how you could use these in a really interesting, interactive way with your students and integrate it. I was just quite curious about all of the things you've got in the pipeline. You've given us a really good sense of what's there. I was really particularly pleased to see some work on AI, and maybe more will be coming in terms of using AI as a methodology for humanities research. And it's something that I'm intrigued by and know absolutely nothing about, and hence I'd be a guinea pig for one of those courses, definitely if you created one. And I just wanted to get a sense of how do we get involved. So I want to present these to my own faculty. I mean, I can see the potential obviously for when you're using humanities in a very kind of sort of broad sense, that really spans, I think, a lot of the kind of humanistic social sciences as well. I imagine that's the intention. So how do we get involved, basically? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Juliana. And yeah, it's great to hear that it will be a useful resource. I think we are currently kind of, let's say, at the end of phase one of this project, where, as I say, it's been very internally focused. And after kind of early in 2026, there will be a kind of external call for content and kind of ideas for people to disseminate. I think there are different ways of getting involved. There's informally saying, oh, it would be great if you could develop a course on this, or it might be, we'd like to develop a course on this, or it might be, we already have, a resource that we developed for our own research project. We'd like to look at, maybe we don't, as I say, we don't just put things on the platform. It might need some more redevelopment to kind of fit how we're aligning things. But I think, I'd summarize that, they are either suggesting what the platform needs, what your own research students or researchers might need, or, actually developing content, or, you know, if you're thinking about a future research project as well, you might start putting in, you know, and you could start a conversation with us actually, oh, as part of our research project, we'd like to develop a resource for Reshaped. How might that fit with kind of platform and things like that? So there'll be a more formal announcement in kind of early in 2026, but I think there will be lots of ways that people can engage with the resource. I don't know, Niilante and Simon, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is that we did have a form to collect information that people felt was useful. I will drop it into the chat. It's really just a case of saying, you know, please take note of this. And when it comes to that, when that process is announced, those will be the things that we look at as well. But yeah, as Naomi said, 2026 is we're all waiting for that process to be outlined fully, and then we'll look forward to working on everything.
Thank you. Liz?
Hi, Charles. Yeah, an amazing resource. I think I'm thinking about the potential of this, of dovetailing with some of the AHRC awards that have been made. So the AHRC, they've replaced the doctoral training partnerships with the Focal Awards and with the Landscape Awards. And the Focal Awards are themed around arts and humanities for a healthy people, planet and place, and around arts and humanities for the creative economies. And the big message that we keep getting from AHRC about that is, wouldn't it be, you know, we want everybody to benefit, we want all of that. A lot of the awards are also quite geographically diverse. So one I'm involved in, for example, is Pan Wales. So if you're looking at the distance from kind of Cardiff to Bangor, you're talking 4 or 5 hours. So there is a real need for those kinds of online platforms. What the Wales Graduate School for Social Sciences has done really successfully, because that's a Pan Wales doctoral training partnership, is they have built an online platform to develop these kinds of asynchronous resources. The scale of the ESRC investment in that is in a different ballpark from the scale of the investment in the AHRC space. So, you know, if we were to compare just those two in the Welsh landscape, same number of institutions, actually the AHRC's got more. We get 20 awards over the course of the studentship. They get 72 a year. You know, that's the kind of scale we're talking about. So I think that what would be really helpful is if, as the HRC Focal Award holders start to develop their training programs, if we could link in with this as a means, because we can content, but that question of the platform, and if you think about, you know, there are consortia based in London, well, they're all around the UK. Everybody, there's a desire from the Focal Award holders to work together, but we don't have the infrastructure. So I'm just wondering if in that, Reshaped could be a piece of that jigsaw, working with the Focal Awards to create training that speaks across Focal Awards, but also is then accessible to the broader PGR community as a whole. So I guess that's that would be my suggestion of maybe a discussion that we could possibly have outside of this room, but it might be a direction that you'd be interested in.
Thank you, Liz. Naomi?
Yeah, I think that is a really fantastic idea, Liz. And I think, you know, this is really what we want this to be, is to kind of create a shared infrastructure where, you know, one, it would be a wasted resource for every Focal Award, you know, to be building a platform, both in terms of time and money, and to be able to really focus on, actually, we want people can focus on developing the material, and, you know, we will maintain that infrastructure for everyone. And I think it is something that should be very high on the agenda. And I think something our new Dean as well, because I think she's also was quite involved in some of those, you know, some of those Focal Award discussions as well. I think it's something that she as well will also be very keen for us to explore. So I think we'll definitely take that back as a really useful suggestion and having those conversations. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. I see, Amanda, you've got a question in the chat. Would you like to raise that vocally?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, it's just I was going to just some ideas on some content. So I don't know if it's not particularly strategic.
Yeah, no, perfect.
The other thing I was going to ask actually is, are the courses certificated? Is there a digital certificate? Because that would be good for
Yes.
if you're building a Yes, it is.
No,
Okay.
sorry, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
Okay.
no, that's fine. You answered the question. That's cool.
Yeah, sure. No, it's so there are the courses themselves will have a certificate. One of the things that we do recognize is that a lot of the time when people attend research training, it's not always easy for them to evidence, that they've attended it. So we do want to encourage people to do that. We want to keep a record of their achievements on the platform as well. But also in terms of that Vitae Research and Development Framework angle, we do also want to be able to have them explain how that has benefited them as a researcher. So there's one already on the certificates. Those are there for the courses that are on there already. But the second part is that actually competencies and the kind of things that is also what we're planning to build into the platform too. So it is very much a case of yes, we want people to be able to say, we have badges as well. I know the badges just for within the platform. Certificates are downloadable. They can use it outside the platform too.
Yeah, I think it would help with employability, just to be able to evidence that you completed those courses or gain those skills or competencies, whichever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And even in the in terms of the feedback, we do also try to encourage people to think about the things that they get from from the courses. I think sometimes I have a certificate is great, but actually to be able to say what that certificate means to you as an individual, what you learned, the journey that you've been on, that's also crucial too. So kind of we designed it thinking from that perspective.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Just riffing a bit off Liz's question. The humanities and social sciences sometimes overlap. Generally speaking, they are getting closer to one another. What is the nature of the relationship between social sciences and humanities on Reshaped?
Yeah, I think one thing we say, which really chimes with what Liz says, is we think the social sciences has a very well-resourced research training infrastructure. So it's not that we're saying, we're better than we don't want social scientists here. We recognize there's much more of a gap in the humanities for very developed research training infrastructure. There are, obviously Liz mentioned the example from Wales. There's a kind of other national, methodologies, sorry, I forget the name, kind of training network as well. They often have much more developed infrastructure and resource for training. So, the interviews course that Joe and I developed, partly stems from the fact that when we were PhD students, they were like, well, if you want interviews training, go to the social sciences or history sometimes. But, we didn't feel there was really a space which really discussed actually what does interviews mean as a humanities research method or a languages research method? And it's not that we still draw on some of the terminology, around interviews that comes from the social sciences. And it might be also in the future, we think about talking back to the social sciences and kind of questioning maybe some of their ways of thinking about interviews and, thinking about more creative approaches to interviews as well, which is something we try to address in the course. So I think it's not that we want to, silo or separate that dialogue or, we do see them as fluidly. And I think languages, culture and societies researchers in particular are very good at kind of working across the two areas and thinking about how they work together. But as I say, I think we just think there's much more a gap in the humanities for this kind of platform. And that's why it is quite specifically targeted at humanities researchers.
My other question, just waiting, but we'll continue for a little bit longer. This is dependent upon the involvement of communities of humanities scholars. One thing is that it would be, it's a great resource, but people need to get to know it. Is there are there plans to go to individual universities, or would you accept invitations to go and give a demonstration and talk to people about their ideas about how they develop resources for this platform?
I think absolutely. I think this is something that will come also with the external call for, contributions. I think there is going to be much more of going out to other institutions and talking to them about the resource and kind of getting it, allowing people to think through their ideas. I think we want to do that when we've got as Juliana says, we want to do that when there's a formal mechanism for people actually to develop and propose their ideas. We think that's probably the most useful stage at which we would go out more broadly, but I think it's definitely something that we will be doing in the future. But I think will be helpful to do it when we have that kind of external call as well, so people are very clear on how they can contribute.
But also subject communities, subject associations, which do think about these issues. Are there plans to operate with subject associations?
Yeah, absolutely as well. I think one thing we don't want to duplicate offer as well, and I think that's really important for us to think about as well, is making sure we're not, a lot of subject associations also offer training and materials to their communities, so how we make those two fit together. I think, we don't want the platform to be we do want this a platform where humanities researchers come together. So I think that is something that we're very keen develops. And this is why, we didn't want, we want a publishing hub for the humanities. We don't want each subject area developing its own, how to publish a monograph in history, how to publish a monograph in languages. We think it's important, actually, we really think about actually what we share and those shared and common approaches as well. So I think definitely thinking about how subject associations can get involved, and also how we can point towards the resources of subject associations as well, I think, which Niilante kind of, was talking about with the hubs. I don't know if you want to say, Niilante, working with kind of, a bit more about how we work with other organisations.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that in terms of the it gives the opportunity to for us to actually partner with other institutions, and actually for them to be the ones to help to generate and curate that content too. I think it is definitely the case where we look at it as infrastructure, and that actually the more people we have building and bringing things into the infrastructure, the richer it gets. So a simple example would be something like digital humanities, where every time a new course is added, then it enables all these different new learning journeys. Because for instance, we've got one 3D and cultural heritage. When that's added in, people can then directly go, okay, well, let's look at born digital resources. Let's look at this. They can tie things together that wouldn't otherwise have been possible. So the more we have people creating new content and feeding that content in, the richer that ecosystem becomes. And I think it's probably also worth mentioning as well that in terms of that partnership, it isn't just about the technology or the content that we're creating. In fact, sometimes it's actually getting some of these people into the same room. An example would be something like paleography at the School of Advanced Study. We've got paleography in history, we've got paleography in English, and actually this having a place for them to say, how do you guys bring this together into reshaped content? They've now sat together and started thinking about how they want their offering to be designed and developed. And the more we can get that to happen across institutions, then we can actually start to look at the real training need, get the most efficiency out of it. I think I love the way that, a lecturer could be thinking, well, I don't have this very specialist expertise in my institution, but because of Reshaped, it feels like it's right at hand, and I can actually bring that into my course design and into my classroom in a different way. So it is really about working with others as much as possible, and thinking not about like just the courses we have on here, but actually the humans and the value that's being delivered as behind that.
Thank you. I've got one other question, but I'll hold that for a second just to make sure that anyone else wants to ask a question about its future. We'll finish in a few minutes, but just any other last questions? In which case, I will ask my last question, and this is, behind this, there is a sense of the way it's an inevitable interdisciplinary movement towards interdisciplinary research, in that one is having at one's fingertips resources from across the range of humanities, rather than thinking about one's particular subject area. And I think that is something that the whole trend of humanities research is moving in this direction. I think that's great. Another aspect of this, and this is something we will be talking about at our next meeting of Thinking Strategically, and that is challenges facing the subject area. But there is a strong sense of advocacy in the work and visibility about the work that is occurring in the humanities. importance, necessity of its methodologies more and more in the world that we're living in, both in our universities and the wider world. So can you reflect a little bit on its role as in advocacy? It could be linked very closely to the languages gateway that Charlotte Rylands is and many other colleagues are working on, and the way in which that advocacy strand and visibility and public understanding of the humanities, how that feeds into the work of Reshaped.
Yeah, I think part of it, as I say, I think if we're much more visible about the knowledge and skills we have, I think that's really a crucial element of what Reshape can do. You know, I think it can challenge this idea of, you know, what do humanities researchers do, or what, you know, that kind of doubts about what we actually contribute. So I think being much more visible, which I think the platform can do, in thinking about, you know, being very clear that humanities has very complex methodologies that other disciplines can learn from as well. I say it's a platform for the humanities. It doesn't mean other disciplines in the future might look at that. And I think that's been sometimes a problem with humanities. We're often told we have to learn from other disciplines, but we don't always get that two-way dialogue back of actually saying, well, we've got important methods and ideas that we would like to share with other communities. And I think the other one is possibly having, and I know organisations like the Arts and Humanities Alliance have been developing also materials about how to advocate, you know, for your department, how to advocate for your subject area. And it may be in future actually we develop some materials, maybe we might have an advocacy hub, which actually talks about how do we better communicate what we do in the humanities as well. But I just want to bring in, I think, Simon Lante, you might have an interesting perspective on this, because I know we're humanities researchers, and I know, Simon, you've got a history degree, so you've got a background in humanities, but it'd be interesting, you know, we're humanities researchers and we say, you know, we think it's very valuable, but I know for you who maybe aren't humanities researchers, you know, how do you feel about kind of having learned and worked with a lot of humanities researchers? I think your perspective might be interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree entirely about the humanities having these sort of very valuable sort of research methodologies and ways of seeing the world, and now being even more important than ever. It's something that people hear about a lot, but especially with the growth of AI and machine learning, you know, I think it's more important than ever to reflect on the particular contribution of the humanities disciplines, and yeah, I think more than ever for the entire sector, the interdisciplinary way is the way to go. And because of so much collaboration between humanities disciplines, we are an excellent model for that.
I mean, I wouldn't add much to that except to say that I think Simon's absolutely right in terms of, I think there's never been a better time for people to be equipped with the skills to understand human decisions, the culture, and how things are changing. So I think it's actually for me, it's really good timing. And I think in terms of advocating, I think that we're conscious of the pressures on the humanities, and actually I think that by doing some of the simple things of connecting, amplifying, actually we can really not just ensure that things, expertise, knowledge isn't lost, but also just make sure it's part of something much bigger. And I think actually that's a real defense. If it's part of something bigger, then it's harder to kind of say, you know, what's the value, because it's fundamental. You can see where it's fundamental. But then the other thing as well, I think that's quite, you know, just very practical, is that having a platform like this, it does enable those partnerships. And, you know, if it is the case where saying that, look, this is how we're serving the galleries, like the GLAM sector, this is how we're able to build, I think it does provide avenues for funding, avenues for attention. But also, I think really one that I wrote down was about, sorry, I think the lady mentioned it, about the AHRC creative industries. Frankly, that's where, you know, that's where money is. Like, it's worth thinking about actually, where is interest, where is money, and then how do we tie that and show them how the humanities is relevant to what they're doing. I think that, you know, it'd be lovely to see if we could put things together to everyone's benefit.
Thank you. I think that's a terrific way to end. I'd like to thank Naomi, Niilante and Simon for sharing this wonderful resource with us, which we're going to hear a lot more about in the future. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank Kathy Collins, as ever, for making all of this possible. So thanks again, and I hope to see people on the 21st of November for our next seminar. Cheers.